listening to international investment advisor Doug Goldstein on the Goldstein on Gelt show, the financial show where we'll talk about how you can make the most of your money. With all the confusing financial chatter bombarding you each and every day, Goldstein on Gelt will give you the practical information you want and need about living a financially stable life. Here's your host, money maven Doug Goldstein.
Okay, we are back. We are talking with Charles Bronfman. Charles Bronfman is probably most currently well known for being the co-founder, along with Michael Steinhardt, of Birthright, a program which provides a free educational travel experience to Israel for young Jewish adults. He is the chairman of the Andrea and Charles Bronfman Philanthropies organization, Inc., a family of charitable foundations that operates in Israel, the U.S.A., and Canada. And he's responsible for the Charles Bronfman Prize, which honors individuals for their humanitarian contributions. So first of all, Charles, I'd like to welcome you to the show.
Well, thank you very much, Doug. And I'm not responsible for the Charles Bronfman Prize. That was probably the ultimate in gifts that children can give a father. And that was given to me by my children on my 70th birthday.
Oh,
so they take responsibility for that, and I just bask in their glory.
Okay, I apologize, and it's nice to have children who can respect their father for what they've done. So
Every time I go to one of the awards, I start to cry. That, and when I go to a Birthright mega event, I cry there too.
That is, they are quite.
And I'm not a big crier, by the way.
I hear. So we're speaking about the next generation, and one of the issues that you've brought up publicly and certainly brought up many times is why is it so difficult these days to motivate the next generation to become serious philanthropists?
Well, I don't think it's that difficult, and I think that we and others have done a lot of work about that. I think that, unfortunately, the larger organizations have very grave difficulty in finding common cause with Generation Y. And Generation Y is very, very different than anything that's come before in terms of the way those folks think. They're young, they're smarter than heck, but they have a multitude of identities. For instance, when I was brought up, I knew I was Canadian and I was Jewish. That was the end of that. And today, you have about 7 identities. Where you meet on the internet, the things you like to do with other people. Jewish would be one of them. American or Canadian or Israeli would be another one, et cetera, et cetera. And you live in a world that is custom fit for you. You TiVo whatever thing you want to watch. You can find anything you want on the internet. And you chat, and you tweet, and you text, and it's a different world. It's a different thought process.
So the younger generation, you'd say, is just they're viewing the world through different glasses from, let's say.
Absolutely, and the problem, you think that many of the executives of the larger organizations have children who are of Generation Y. But the problem seems to be, the greatest threat to any bureaucracy is change. Mm-hmm. And this is a huge change. These folks are not like we used to be, and not like even my children are. They're their own breed, and by gosh, they're serious, but they're good. And the kids who go on Birthright, we know them. We know who they are, and we wish to heck that some of the larger organizations would interact with those young people and find out what's on their mind. They're very spiritual, but they don't want to belong to synagogues. Mm-hmm. They're very generous, but they don't want to join a federation, for instance, or they don't want to join a JCC. They want to do their own thing and do it while they're young and active. Now, when they grow older, and don't forget, young people are having children later now than they used to. They're getting married later. When they do that and they do have children, then they'll join synagogues. So they say, hey, we've got time now to do good things our own way.
Do you think that you've addressed the issue of large charities as a donor, someone who's giving money? Do you think it's better to give money to the larger charities, which run the risk of being too organizationally heavy or bureaucratic, as you said, or is it better to give to smaller charities, which unfortunately can't benefit from the economies of scale.
Well, you know, the way our societies work, both in the United States and I should say in all three, in the United States, Canada, and Israel, is that there is a mix of government and philanthropic worlds. Those two worlds intertwine. And part of our societies in all these countries deem philanthropy to be a must. So therefore, we have to, I think, pay our social taxes to our federations and our JCCs and all those other organizations, Magen David Adom, whatever it is. We have to support them. But then what you have to do is single out areas. A lot of people take education, for instance, and say, how are we going to do things that really resound in our hearts and our souls? Mm-hmm. And that's what you give a certain amount to the big ones, and then you reserve a certain amount in your own soul for what you think is really necessary.
So you're saying,
and if enough people give a damn, things will happen.
So you're saying that people should diversify their philanthropic portfolio as once a week. Yes. I have a radio show. During the rest of the week, I'm a financial advisor, so I spend most of my time helping people diversify their investments. So you're saying this applies to donations as well?
Well, I wouldn't say necessarily diversify. I'd say you live in a society to give to that society. Then you live because you're a human being and you have brains and you want to do good, because I think all of us want to leave this world a little bit better than we found it. So then whatever eats into your soul and eats into your heart, go for it. And whatever funds you have left over, give to that thing and be proactive, help guide it, and see where it's going to go. Join with others to try to really accomplish something and make a difference.
We are talking with Charles Bronfman, who, along with Michael Steinhardt, co-founded Birthright, which is probably one of the best-known organizations for getting young Jewish adults involved in Israel and actually coming and seeing it. And certainly sitting in my office in Jerusalem, I look out over King George Street, and I see the buses all the time with a big Taglit Birthright sign on them. And it's always very encouraging to see all of these people coming to visit and to check out, and then hearing what they have to say when they come back. And Charles has been explaining to us about the different ways of giving charity and paying back the society from which we came. A lot of times people set up foundations which they try to see as dynastic foundations that will continue forever. Is that the right way to go, or is it better to have a self-liquidating type of program?
Well, I guess you know, Doug, that we have a self-liquidating kind of program. But I think that you look at one foundation, you're seeing one foundation. I don't think there are any norms. We did it for a certain reason. In 2001, my late wife and I and Jeff Solomon made the decision to end our foundation, not our philanthropy, but our foundation in 2016, and that will happen. It so happens that my children have their own foundations and are doing their own thing because, as they said, we're a different generation than you are. I also personally do not believe in ruling from the grave. Mm-hmm. So that's the way we're set up. I have nothing against, and I'm all for any kind of philanthropy, any way you want to do it. in different cases, people invite their children to the table and say, okay, you have a vote, you have a voice, and you take your own programs, do them, and but do it within the family context. That's fine too.
I see. So I hear the model is, you're saying that it for some people, different strokes for different folks. For some people, it might be right to have a long-term. The only thing
I must say is that I think it's terribly important to involve the children, one way or the other. I'm very fortunate. My kids saw what I did and what their grandparents did when they were young, and each of them is a terrific citizen today. One in Montreal, very involved in the Jewish and non-Jewish communities, and one in Los Angeles doing the same thing.
You mentioned Jewish philanthropy. In the world of multiculturalism, which seems to be very popular today, is Jewish philanthropy to the Jewish world still important, or is it really becoming passé?
Oh, I think it's very important. what happened was in North America, as Jews became more accepted, places like the Metropolitan Museum in New York suddenly accepted Jewish money, whereas they hadn't. There was overt anti-Semitism in some of these organizations. So we have always wanted, as Jews, to be part of the society and to acculturate, not assimilate, but acculturate. And so when the opportunity came for Jews to be able to give money and name a room in the Metropolitan Museum, as an example, they did it. So they said, we're part of this society. We're New Yorkers, just like you guys are New Yorkers. And it worked. So one might say that because it's so visible, those folks have given less to Jewish causes. I doubt that is true. But there's no question that we have missed the opportunity to excite people about Jewish philanthropy in the way they can be excited with their names on things in their own hometown.
I see.
And
so
we haven't done that very well.
So giving people the recognition for the charity, you think, is an important part of helping to get them more involved?
Yeah, and that's one of the strange things about Birthright Israel, Taglit. We give recognition, frankly, to nobody, and they have given huge amounts of money to us. And we can name a bus for somebody, or we can name on that trip, or we can get pictures of the people they're supporting from their hometown in the Jewish newspaper, maybe even in the non-Jewish newspaper. But there's nothing lasting about any gift to Birthright except the satisfaction of knowing that you really have done something towards Jewish continuity, something important.
Yes, and indeed it is clearly true that that's happening, and I can tell you from, again, my personal experience being here and meeting people who have gone on the trip that their lives really have been changed, and they really become individuals who are excited about Israel and either wanting to live here or to learn more or to become part of the Jewish community. So, Charles Bronfman, I'd like to thank you very much for spending the time with us today. As a last question, just because we're out of time, is there a way that people could learn more about the work that you're doing?
Well, I guess they could go on the internet and look up our foundation. I don't think I've ever looked at our homepage. Or they could write to us in Israel. They could write to Janet Aviad at Karen Karev, number 1 Market Street, Jerusalem. Or they could email us at acbp.net.
Okay, Charles Bronfman, who is the chairman of the Andrea and Charles Bronfman Philanthropies, thank you very much for your time.
My pleasure, Doug.
You've been listening to the Goldstein on Gelt Show with money maven Doug Goldstein. Doug's weekly radio show is heard around the world, but if you miss it, you can download the podcast at www.goldsteinongelt.com. The Goldstein on Gelt Show gives you up-to-date financial ideas so you can get on the path to financial freedom. If you'd like your questions answered on the air or off, send Doug an email to doug@profile-financial.com. It's your money for your future, so join Doug every week to build your wealth on the Goldstein on Gelt Show.